18 nannies quit in 6 months. The last one left bleeding, saying she couldn't take another day with that 1-year-old. Every professional with every degree failed. Then a housemaid walked in, just there to clean. And the moment that little girl saw her, she stopped screaming. No one could explain what happened next. The Harris penthouse in Boston smelled like death. Not literal death, but close. Grief, silence, a family barely breathing. Victoria Smith pushed her cleaning cart through the door that Tuesday morning, and everything felt wrong. The agency said, "Don't ask questions. Stay away from the 3rd floor." She nodded. Then she heard it. A child screaming. Not anger, terror. Victoria froze at the stairs. She'd lost her little brother years ago. She knew that sound. She went up. Through the door, she saw a nanny quit, saw blood, saw a little girl in the corner, shaking, desperate. Victoria stepped inside. The girl looked up. The screaming stopped. "Get out!" A man's voice. Broken. James Harris stood there, hollow, wrecked. When his daughter saw him, she cried, "Dada, go!" He looked destroyed. Victoria turned to leave. But the little girl reached out her small hands toward Victoria. James froze. She hadn't done that for him in months. But before we begin, like this video, subscribe, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Sometimes God sends the broken ones to heal the broken. James sat down on the edge of the couch. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, maybe longer. His hands were shaking. "My mother said you were in Valerie's room yesterday," he said quietly. "She said, my daughter stopped crying when she saw you." Victoria stood near the doorway, still holding her cart handle. "Yes, sir." "Is that true?" His voice cracked on the word, true, like he was afraid to hope. "She calmed down," Victoria said carefully. "I just sat with her." James pressed his hands to his face, took a breath. When he looked up, his eyes were red. 18 nannies, he said. 18 certified professionals in 6 months. Every single one quit. The last one lasted 2 days. She left yesterday with bite marks on her arm, saying my daughter was... He stopped. Couldn't finish. Victoria stayed quiet. "The doctors say there's nothing wrong. No medical reason. They say she's just difficult. Strong-willed. That she'll grow out of it." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just pain. "My wife died 9 months ago," he said. "Car accident. Valerie was 3 months old, and ever since, my daughter screams like she's being torn apart. She bites, she hits, she won't let anyone hold her, won't sleep, won't eat unless we force her." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know what's wrong with her, and I don't know how to fix it." Victoria watched him. This wasn't just a rich man with a problem. This was a father drowning. "Yesterday," James continued, "for the first time in months, my daughter reached for someone. Not me, not the nannies, you." He looked at Victoria like she was the only answer he had left. "I don't know what you did. I don't know why it worked. But I'm begging you." His voice broke completely. "Help me, please. I'll pay you anything. Triple your salary. More. I don't care. Just help me reach my daughter before I lose her completely." Victoria's throat tightened. She wasn't a nanny. She wasn't trained for this. But she'd seen something yesterday that no one else seemed to see. That baby wasn't difficult. She was terrified. "Mr. Harris," Victoria said slowly, "I'm just a housekeeper. I don't have degrees or certifications." "I don't care about degrees," James interrupted. His eyes were desperate. "The certified people made it worse. Maybe she needs someone who just sees her." Victoria hesitated. "If I try this," she said, "you have to let me do it my way. Anything. No schedules, no forcing. I follow her lead." James nodded immediately. "When can you start?" "Today," Victoria said. Relief flooded his face. But as Victoria followed him toward the stairs, one thought burned in her mind. What had she just agreed to? And what was really wrong with that baby? The playroom was too perfect. Custom-painted walls, toys that cost more than Victoria made in a month, everything a child could want. But Valerie sat in the corner, gripping that blue scarf, staring at nothing. Victoria set her cleaning supplies outside the door and walked in slowly. The baby's eyes tracked her movement. Wary. Waiting. "Hey, sweetheart," Victoria said softly. "Remember me?" Valerie didn't move. Victoria sat down on the floor. Not close, just present. For 10 minutes, neither of them spoke. Then Valerie shifted, looked at Victoria, looked at the scarf in her hands. "Mama," she whispered. Victoria's chest tightened. "That was your mama's?" The baby nodded, pulled the scarf closer to her face. Victoria noticed something then, the way Valerie's eyes kept drifting to the doorway, like she was watching for someone, afraid someone would come. "Is someone coming to take it away?" Victoria asked gently. Valerie's whole body tensed. She clutched the scarf tighter. That's when Victoria understood. Someone had been trying to take it from her. "No one's going to take it," Victoria said quietly. "It's yours. You can keep it." Valerie stared at her, testing, searching her face. Then slowly, so slowly, she crawled toward Victoria. Not all the way, just close enough to be near. Victoria stayed still, didn't reach, didn't grab, just let the baby decide. Valerie sat down 2 feet away, the scarf pressed to her cheek, and for the first time in months, she didn't scream. Downstairs, James stood in his study doorway, watching the monitor on his phone. Live feed from the playroom camera. His daughter was sitting peacefully next to a woman she'd met yesterday. Not screaming, not biting, not throwing things, just sitting. He wanted to go up there, wanted to see it with his own eyes, but something stopped him. Fear, maybe, or guilt, because the truth was, every time he walked into that room, Valerie screamed louder. Every time she saw his face, she cried like he was the one hurting her. He told himself it was grief, that she associated him with losing her mother. But deep down, James knew it was more than that. He just didn't know what. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "We need to talk about this arrangement. Call me." James deleted it. He wasn't letting anyone interfere. Not this time. Not when someone had finally reached his daughter. Even if that someone was a stranger. Even if he didn't understand why it worked. Upstairs, Victoria noticed something else. Valerie kept touching her ear, rubbing it, wincing slightly. "Does your ear hurt, baby?" Valerie looked up at her with those wide brown eyes and nodded. Victoria stayed with Valerie for 3 hours that first day. When the baby finally fell asleep on the floor, still clutching the scarf, Victoria went downstairs. James was in his office, staring at paperwork he wasn't reading. "Mr. Harris?" He looked up fast. "Is she okay?" "She's sleeping," Victoria said. "But I need to ask you something. Has anyone checked her ears recently?" His face went blank. "Her ears?" She kept touching her left ear, rubbing it. She winced when I got close to that side. James stood up. "The pediatrician saw her 2 weeks ago, said everything was fine. Did they check her ears specifically?" He hesitated. I don't know. I wasn't there." The nanny took her. Victoria watched his face change, guilt settling in. "She might have an ear infection," Victoria said gently. "That could be part of why she's been so upset." James grabbed his phone, started dialing. "I'll call the doctor right now. Get her in today." "Good," Victoria said. But as she turned to leave, James spoke again. "Victoria." She stopped. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for seeing what everyone else missed." The doctor's appointment was at 4. Victoria offered to come, but James said he needed to do this himself. She waited in the penthouse, cleaning, listening. When they came back 2 hours later, James looked pale. He was carrying Valerie, who was crying softly against his shoulder. "Severe ear infection," he said, voice tight. "Both ears." The doctor said, "She's probably been in pain for weeks, maybe longer." Victoria's stomach dropped. "The last nanny never mentioned it?" "No." His jaw clenched. "None of them did. They just kept saying she was difficult, that she needed discipline." He looked at his daughter, and something in his face broke. "She's been screaming because she's in pain, and His voice cracked. "I wasn't here to notice." Valerie whimpered, pressing her face into his neck. For the first time, she wasn't pushing him away. James held her tighter. "The doctor prescribed antibiotics," he said. "Said she should start feeling better in a day or 2. Victoria nodded. "That's good." But as she watched them, something felt wrong. Because if the ear infection explained the screaming, what explained the fear? What explained why Valerie reached for Victoria but cried when her own father walked in? What explained why she clung to that scarf like it was the only thing keeping her alive? James carried Valerie upstairs, and Victoria stood alone in that enormous, empty house, wondering what else everyone had missed. What else was hiding in plain sight? 3 days later, Valerie was better. The infection cleared. The pain faded. She started eating again. stopped crying every few minutes, but she still wouldn't let James near her. Victoria watched it happen over and over. James would walk into the room, Valerie would freeze, then scramble to Victoria, reaching up with both arms. "Dada, go," she'd whisper, not angry, afraid, and every time, James would step back, face tight, eyes hollow. He'd leave without a word. One evening, Victoria found him standing outside Valerie's room, just staring through the cracked door. "Mr. Harris." He didn't turn around. "She used to love me," he said quietly. "Before Caroline died. Valerie would light up when I came home, reach for me, laugh when I picked her up." His voice broke. "Now she looks at me like I'm a stranger, like I scare her." Victoria didn't know what to say. "The infection's gone," James continued. "She's not in pain anymore. So why does she still—" He couldn't finish. Victoria stepped closer. "Grief doesn't have a timeline, Mr. Harris, and babies feel more than we think. I'm her father," he whispered. "I'm supposed to protect her, but I don't even know how to hold her anymore without making her cry." He turned to look at Victoria then. "What am I doing wrong?" "You're not doing anything wrong," Victoria said gently. "You're just hurting, and she can feel it." James looked back through the door. Inside, Valerie sat on the floor, pressing that blue scarf to her face. "I keep all of Caroline's things in storage," James said suddenly. "Clothes, jewelry, pictures. I thought it would help. Thought if Valerie didn't see reminders, she'd forget, move on." Victoria's chest tightened. "But she found that scarf," he continued, "hidden in a drawer, and now she won't let it go." He looked at Victoria. "Should I take it away?" the therapist said. "Keeping reminders might make the attachment worse." "No," Victoria said firmly. "Don't take it." "But it's all she has left of her mother, Mr. Harris. Taking it would break her." James was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made Victoria's blood run cold. "I've been giving her something, at night, to help her sleep." Victoria went still. "What kind of something?" "The pediatrician prescribed something," James said. "A few months ago, when Valerie wouldn't stop screaming at night. Hours and hours, nothing worked." Victoria's hands went cold. "What did they prescribe?" James hesitated. "It's just a mild sedative, child-safe, low dose. It helps her sleep." "How often?" "Every night." Victoria felt her heart drop. "For how long?" "Since she was 6 months old." 6 months. Half her life. "Mr. Harris," Victoria said carefully, "what's the name of the medication?" He pulled out his phone, showed her a prescription bottle photo. Victoria read the label. Her stomach turned. "This isn't a child sedative," she said slowly. "This is adult sleep medication." James's face went white. "What? The doctor prescribed this? For a baby?" he said. James's voice shook. "He said it was safe, low dose, that she needed it to regulate her sleep." Victoria looked at the dosage instructions. "Mr. Harris, this is way too strong for a 1-year-old. But the doctor—" "Which doctor?" James went quiet. "Mr. Harris, which doctor prescribed this?" I didn't go to her pediatrician. He kept saying she was fine. I just needed to be patient." Victoria's blood ran cold. "So who gave you this?" "A psychiatrist. Someone my mother recommended. He did a phone consultation. Said if she was that distressed, medication was the humane choice." "A phone consultation," Victoria repeated. "For a 6-month-old baby." James sat down hard on the couch. "Oh God," he whispered. "What have I done?" Victoria's mind raced. This explained everything. The mood swings, the aggression, the confusion. Valerie wasn't just grieving. She was being drugged. "Mr. Harris, you need to stop giving this to her. Tonight. But she'll scream. Yes, but she needs to get this out of her system." James looked terrified. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't listen to her cry like that again. I can't." "Then I'll stay," Victoria said. "Tonight, I'll help you through it." James stared at her. "Why would you do that?" "Because she needs you," Victoria said simply. "And you need to face this. Together." That night, Victoria didn't go home. And when she went to give Valerie her bedtime routine, she found something that made her hands shake, hidden in the nursery closet. Empty prescription bottles. Not just one. 7. Victoria held the bottles in her shaking hands. 7 empty prescription bottles. All the same medication. All from the last 6 months. She walked downstairs, found James in his office. Mr. Harris. He looked up, saw what she was holding. His face went grey. How much have you been giving her? Victoria asked quietly. James couldn't speak. How much? Half a tablet, he whispered. Crushed. In her milk. Every night. Victoria felt sick. That's an adult dose. For a 1-year-old. I didn't know. You didn't ask, Victoria said. Her voice was shaking now. You didn't ask her real pediatrician. You didn't research it. You just wanted her to stop crying. James stood up, hands trembling. You don't understand, he said. You don't know what it was like. Night after night, listening to her scream, listening to her call for a mother who's never coming back. His voice cracked. I couldn't take it. I couldn't. So you silenced her, Victoria said. The words hung in the air. James's face crumpled. I didn't mean to hurt her, he whispered. I just wanted the pain to stop. For her? Or for you? The question broke something in him. He sank into his chair, head in his hands. For me, he said. God forgive me. For me. Silence. Then James looked up, eyes red. Caroline died because of me. Victoria went still. We were fighting, he continued, voice hollow. About work. About me never being home. She said I cared more about my company than my family. I said she was overreacting. She grabbed Valerie and left. Said she needed space. His hands were shaking. 3 blocks from the house, a drunk driver ran a red light. Hit her head on. Caroline died instantly. Valerie was in the back seat, untouched. She saw everything. Tears fell down his face. My last words to my wife were angry, and my daughter looks exactly like her. Every time I see Valerie, I see what I destroyed. He looked at Victoria. That's why I can't hold her. That's why I hired nannies. That's why I medicated her. Because looking at her face reminds me that I killed her mother. Victoria's throat tightened. Mr. Harris, no more medication, he said suddenly. You're right. Starting tonight. No more. It's going to be hard, Victoria warned. She might have withdrawal symptoms. I know. You need to be here. With her. Through all of it. James nodded, terrified. But as Victoria turned to leave, one thought burned in her mind. What would happen when the medication left Valerie's system? What if it got worse before it got better? The first night without medication, Valerie screamed for 2 hours straight. Not the pain-filled screams from the ear infection. This was different, deeper, like something inside her was trying to break free. James sat on the nursery floor, back against the wall, watching Victoria hold his daughter. Valerie wouldn't let him touch her. Every time he tried, she screamed louder. So he just sat there, listening, watching, breaking. It's okay, baby, Victoria whispered, rocking Valerie gently. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to hurt. But Valerie couldn't calm down. Her little body shook. Her hands clutched the blue scarf so tight her knuckles went white. Around midnight, something shifted. Valerie stopped screaming, started crying instead. Soft, broken, real, like she'd been holding it in for months and finally couldn't anymore. James watched his daughter cry, and something inside him shattered. She's been carrying this alone, he whispered, all this time, and I wasn't there. Victoria looked at him. You're here now. I don't know what to do. Just be here. That's all she needs. James crawled closer. Slowly. Valerie tensed but didn't scream. He reached out one hand, stopped a few inches from her. I'm so sorry, baby girl, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Valerie looked at him through her tears. For the first time in months, she didn't look afraid. She looked sad. And somehow, that was worse. The second night was harder. Valerie developed a fever, started shaking, wouldn't eat. Victoria called the pediatrician at 2 a.m. It sounds like withdrawal, the doctor said, voice tight with concern. How long was she on the medication? 6 months. Silence, on the other end. Bring her to the ER, now. James carried Valerie to the car, her small body limp against his chest. Victoria rode with them. And as they sped through empty Boston streets, James whispered one thing over and over. Please don't let me lose her. Please. Not her too. The ER doctor's face said everything. Mr. Harris, this medication should never have been prescribed to an infant. The levels in her system. She paused. Another few months, and we'd be looking at permanent damage. Liver, kidneys, neurological. James went white. She'll recover, physically, but she needs to be monitored. And Mr. Harris, the doctor's voice hardened, Child Protective Services will need to be notified. The words hit like a gunshot. James looked at Victoria, then at his daughter, hooked up to monitors and IVs, and whispered, "I deserve that." Valerie stayed in the hospital for 2 days. James never left her side. He slept in the chair next to her bed, held her hand while she slept, watched every monitor like his life depended on it. Victoria came every morning, and slowly, something changed. On the second morning, Valerie woke up and didn't cry when she saw her father. She just looked at him. James froze. "Hey, baby girl," he whispered. Valerie blinked, stared at his face, then reached out one small hand. James took it, tears falling. "I'm here," he said. "Daddy's here." And for the first time in 9 months, Valerie didn't pull away. The social worker came that afternoon. Her name was Mrs. Chen, not the agency director, different woman, older, kind eyes but firm voice. "Mr. Harris, I need to understand what happened here." James told her everything. The grief, the phone consultation, the medication, all of it. He didn't make excuses, didn't try to justify, just told the truth. Mrs. Chen listened, took notes. Then she looked at Valerie, who was sleeping peacefully, the blue scarf tucked under her chin. "Your daughter's been through trauma," she said quietly. "Losing her mother, the medication, the pain. She's going to need therapy. So are you." "I'll do whatever it takes," James said. "I believe you." Mrs. Chen's voice softened. "But belief isn't enough. You need to show up, every day, even when it's hard." James nodded. "I will." Mrs. Chen stood to leave, paused at the door. "Mr. Harris, grief makes us do things we never thought we'd do. It doesn't make you a bad father, but hiding from it almost cost you your daughter." She glanced at Victoria, who sat quietly in the corner. "You're lucky someone saw what you couldn't." That night, the hospital released Valerie. James carried her to the car. Victoria walked beside them. When they got to the penthouse, James stopped at the door. "Victoria, I need to ask you something." She turned. "Stay," he said, "not as a housekeeper, as family. Help us figure this out, please." Victoria looked at Valerie, asleep in her father's arms. Then at James, broken but trying. "I'll stay," she said quietly, "as long as you both need me." James's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." But as they walked inside, Victoria noticed something. Valerie's grip on the scarf had loosened, just slightly. Like maybe, for the first time, she was starting to feel safe enough to let go. Or maybe something else was coming. Something none of them were ready for. 3 weeks later, everything looked different. Not perfect, but different. James reduced his work hours, started coming home at 5, had dinner with Valerie every night. At first, she still tensed when he walked in. But Victoria showed him something simple. "Sit on the floor," she said, "at her level. Let her come to you." So he did. Every evening, James would sit on the nursery floor and wait. And slowly, so slowly, Valerie started crawling toward him. First just to grab a toy near him, then to sit beside him. Then, one night, she climbed into his lap, pressed her face against his chest, and whispered, "Dada." James held her and cried. The therapy helped too. A grief counselor who specialized in babies and young children. She taught James how to talk about Caroline, how to show Valerie pictures, how to say, "Mama's in heaven," without falling apart. She taught him that grief wasn't something to fix. It was something to carry together. One Saturday morning, James did something he'd been avoiding for 9 months. He brought out a photo album, sat with Valerie on the couch. "This is Mama," he said softly, pointing to a picture of Caroline holding newborn Valerie. "She loved you so much." Valerie touched the photo, looked at the blue scarf in her other hand. "Mama," she whispered. "Yes, baby, that was Mama's scarf. And it's okay to keep it. It's okay to remember her." Valerie looked up at him with those big brown eyes and smiled. Small, sad, but real. Victoria watched from the kitchen doorway. This family didn't need her anymore. Not the way they had. They were healing, learning to be a family again. James saw her standing there. "You're not leaving, are you?" he asked quietly. Victoria smiled. "Not leaving, just stepping back. You're doing fine now. We wouldn't be here without you. You would have found your way," Victoria said. You just needed someone to sit with you in the dark until you could see again. James stood, still holding Valerie. You gave me back my daughter, and she gave me back to myself. Valerie reached toward Victoria. Tori. Victoria came closer, kissed the baby's forehead. You're so brave, sweet girl. So brave. Months later, on what would have been Caroline's birthday, they planted a tree in the small garden behind the penthouse. A magnolia, Caroline's favorite. James held Valerie as they stood beside it. The blue scarf was tied gently around one of the branches. Valerie's idea. Mama's tree, she said. Yes, baby, Mama's tree. Valerie looked up at the sky, then back at her father. Dada here? Yes, sweetheart. Daddy's here. I'm not going anywhere. She smiled, rested her head on his shoulder, and for the first time since Caroline died, James felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Peace. Not because the pain was gone, but because he'd finally learned to carry it, and he wasn't carrying it alone. Sometimes healing doesn't come from doctors or degrees. Sometimes it comes from someone willing to sit in the pain with you, someone who sees you when you can't see yourself, someone who reminds you that broken things can still be beautiful, and that love, real love, doesn't run from grief. It walks through it, together.